what was it like before all of these studies and the data, confirmed a lot of your suspicions? Like, what was it like kind of being on the fringe back in the day with these concepts, with these philosophies before the data caught up to you guys, and you and some of your peers have been vindicated in many, many ways? What was that like in the early days of pioneering some of this stuff?
Okay. Well, first of all, such a great question, Quentin. Thank you. Back at that time, there was a lot of evidence. It just hadn't hit the mainstream. And, it still hasn't hit the mainstream. But I remember when the field came out, and that was 2001 in the UK, 2002 in the US. I had reviews from skeptics saying things like, this book is based on Star Wars. And and I had something like 400 scientific references in that book. So it wasn't based on that at all. And, dozens of interviews with each of the scientists I covered. Some of them I interviewed 30 times to get clarity. And I also sent them the information I was going to write about just to make sure I'd got the physics right, I'd got all of the science right. So I was very confident once the book was published that it was correct. But as you say, life is kind of catching up with it. But I don't write for skeptics. I don't write for the mainstream in terms of mainstream science. Mainstream science, like mainstream medicine, is a religion. It's not a science in the sense that most scientists are involved in confirming the status quo. Now, there are lots of pockets of academia that are finding amazing new things, and I'm finding that out because I'm writing essentially a new field right now, which will be published in another year and a bit. But science, as they say, advances one funeral at a time. Most scientists just confirm the status quo, they confirm the paradigm. So the people, like the people I wrote about in the field, are the real outliers. They are the pioneers and the true explorers because they understand how discovering something new isn't to be dismissed, it's to be explored. And the whole job of a scientist, when he goes in a new direction, if he finds something that is a new direction, he has to follow that, even if it counters everything he's believed before.
We are not seeing that. I think you touched on that a little bit. As much as we should be seeing that, right? And obviously now we have disclosure happening, whatever that means, and they're doing hearings on UAPs and UFOs, and they're making it either intentionally or unintentionally as boring as possible. They're not discussing consciousness pretty much at all within that, and the implications of some of the things that we're going to talk about today and what that actually means. So for me, when I read The Field, right, I was right before I was about to go into university, and I loved psychology. I was truly that weird kid that was reading psychology textbooks growing up. And I came across, before reading your book, Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff. And they're what at the time they hadn't developed the orchestrated objective reduction theory of consciousness yet, which you talked with both of them in The Field. And I came across them, loved their work, found your book, and I didn't expect for you to cover that topic, right? And when you bring them up, I'm like, oh, I know these guys. I know where she's going to, oh my gosh. And it was kind of this moment, if you can imagine a clock in the gears, seeing how the physics, the psychology, the quantum fit, how it all fits together into this field, literally this unified field of everything around us, was, I will never forget. I grew up on a horse farm. I was mowing my lawn, and when I was listening to the second time the field, because I have your book, and then I got the audio and I turned it on, and I heard that for the first time, and all the gears, just like that clock, clicked together, and I thought, oh my gosh. One thing I want to ask about for you is, there is a difference between wondering if we can, prove psychic abilities, right? And you go back from the 60s in your book, in your writings, multiple writings. It's very different, though, than to say, wait a minute, how far can we push this? And you cover this in The Power of Eight, right? Where I wanted, because you're even seeing now, like Joe Dispenza with Encephalon replicating this. And they're using 8 healers in a circle, and they call it the cage.
Yeah, I know. I think Joe saw me doing this in 2018. He was a good friend, and I think he thought it was very interesting. Yeah.
For you, what is this like? Because when you started some of these things, even leading up to this interview, I'm re-listening to and re-going through The Power of Eight, and I'm wondering, what am I going to talk about here? And you share the journey. And one thing I noticed very on in the field is you are very clear. Like, I am a journalist. I am just objectively trying to tell people some of the things that have been validated, right? And then you're doing the same thing with The Power of Eight. You're like, we wanted to know what's going on. Then you got server issues and website problems because it just overloaded. Did you find people starving for this information from day one?
Oh, yeah. The field really hit a nerve. I was getting so many letters all over the world and emails and everything else. And then the next step, as you say, was trying to take this further. Okay, I've learned this from all of these scientists, particularly the whole idea that thoughts are an actual something with the capacity to change physical matter. As you say, that extended human potential for me was, how far can we take this? So that's why I set up the intention experiment back in 2007 to test this, because by that time, I knew a lot of scientists in consciousness research, and I also had a lot of readers. The field was in 30 languages at the time. So I thought, if I just put them together, I'll have the biggest global laboratory in the world. And that's what we did. And from then to now, we've done 41 experiments, everything from making seeds grow faster to purifying water to lowering violence in violent and war-torn areas to healing someone of post-traumatic stress disorder. And of the 41, 37 have shown measurable, positive, mostly significant effects. If you compare that with any pharmaceutical drug, no drug has that kind of consistent track record. And by the way, all of this information, all about the journey and the evidence with the intention experiment and The Power of Eight, are in a new Gaia documentary that is launching December 12th. And it is free for everyone to see. It's in front of the Gaia paywall. So we're showing it to show everybody their power and the power of small groups to heal people and the power that we have. One thing that I did with the intention experiment is work with different scientists. I didn't want to be accused of bias, so I worked with scientists at Princeton, Penn State, University of Arizona, University of California, numerous European scientists too, so that we would consistently find the same results no matter which lab we were using.
What's going on, guys? If you like that clip right there, you will love the full interview. You can check that out right there. I'll see you on the next video. Oh, and subscribe, because we got a lot of big things coming up in the near future.